Alrighty, so I'm still battling a sore throat for these past couple of days. Let us now finish up the review of the last 6 games from match week number 3. And if you were a road team, chances are this was a good week for you in terms of these last 6 games because pretty much in these last 6 games, the road team have been able to get at least a point out of their resort. And there's two road teams that actually got all 3 points on the road, and one of them is the Colorado Rapids. So the Rapids, again, whenever they play against RSL at Rio Tinto Stadium, or now called American First Field, but obviously I'm still going to call it Rio Tinto Stadium or call it the Riot, as many RSL fans still refer to their home stadium. This team simply cannot win against RSL when they're playing in the Rocky Mountain Cup on the road. The only time they were able to get a win on the road ever since I start this review of MLS games back in 2018 was in 2020, and that was kind of an outlier because RSL had a really miserable season in that COVID shortened season. They lost like 5-0 in that game against the Rapids, but little did we know that in this game, at least in the beginning, it looked like things were going right for RSL, but then Colorado started to get into this game and they took over this game. Now, early on, RSL again was on the front foot. Early on, it looked like it was your typical Rocky Mountain Cup game at American First Field or at the Riot here, where it looked like RSL was going to win this one easily. Though the shots were only 1-0, 13 minutes in, and Beavers had to deny Fernandez shot off the post there in the 19th minute. I'm not sure why Zach McMath didn't play in this game. They didn't say on the injury report that he was injured, but Gavin Beavers, of course, was in this game, and that was a big save that he made because just 2 minutes later, RSL would take the lead. It's Machianelli scoring from Gomez to make it 1-0 in favor of RSL, and I know Carlos Gomez won't admit it, but that was a shot. I mean, that was a badly hit shot from Carlos Gomez, and he's very fortunate that Machianelli somehow was in the right place at the right time to poke that one in. But nevertheless, RSL has a 1-0 lead in this one. Arango then hits one right to Stefan in the 37th minute. But then in the 44th minute, really kind of came out of nowhere because up to this point, besides that one chance that they had in the 19th minute, the Rapids hasn't really attacked too much. And then really on one of their rare attack, they got a penalty as McAnally, who of course was the hero after scoring the opening goal for RSL, became the villain because he handballed this one in the box. Now, obviously, this was a bit of a harsh one consider, Nelly looks like he did kind of got pushed there, and it's kind of unfortunate as he was getting pushed. His hand was outstretched there, and the ball hit his hands. But yeah, either way, that's always going to be called a handball. It's a bit of a tough one for RSL to kind of had to swallow, especially for Nelly. But nevertheless, Miguel Navarro steps up to take the penalty and he buries it. So that ties the game up at one apiece, really against the run of play because RSL really controlled this game to this point. And then Fernandez would puts it high from close range, and really all of a sudden the momentum changes. Colorado had the momentum; they were pressing for the lead. We then get some coming together between both of these teams because just a reminder that despite the fact that I know people don't rate the Rocky Mountain Cup, we do sometimes do see some dislikeness between both of these teams, and especially there is actually a trophy up in stake in this one, and Colorado wants to win that trophy back after RSL won it last year. There's going to be some dislikeness between both of these teams, but we do head to halftime with the score tied up at one apiece. And in the second half, RSL was back on the front foot as they were looking for the lead back, though Loffelson would hit one right to Beaver in the 65th minute. And then in the 70th minute, Colorado takes the lead. It's Bo Bassett, the ones that takes the lead for the Rapids to make it 2-1. Rongo did try to look for an instant answer, but he hits it right to Stefan. And then Beaver would deny Lavris from long range as I thought RSL just continued to look flat. I mean, despite the fact that I said that they were on the front foot, they weren't really creating too much chances. They were looking very flat whenever they get to the final third. And that's kind of the opposite for Colorado. They just look stronger and stronger as the game goes along. Though there was a huge shout for a penalty for RSL not given in the 90th minute, and the fans were not happy about that. In fact, they were so unhappy that they basically told the ref that he really sucked loudly. And I mean, when I say loudly, you can clearly hear it throughout the broadcast. Probably the loudest I've heard RSL fan at the Riot can't ref you suck in quite a while. I mean, there was a lot of frustration between those fans because they were expecting to see their team to get another win against a team that they pretty much own when they're playing at home in the Rocky Mountain Cup. But instead, really only for the second time in what seems like forever, Colorado Rapids beat RSL in the Rocky Mountain Cup at American First Field, also known as the Riot, by a final score of 2 goals to 1. And the shots in this one, 11 shots compared to 8 that RSL had, 5 shots on goal compared to 6 that Colorado has, 3 shots off target compared to none that RSL had, 3 shots that was blocked compared to 2 that Colorado has, and possession wise, 60% possession compared to 40% possession that Colorado has in this game. And remember when people were kind of panicking in the first game when Colorado's gave up 4 goals in the first half against the Portland Timbers? Well, ever since that moment, the Rapids have scored 4 goals and have only given up two goals and able to pick up 4 points ever since that moment. This is why you cannot overreact after the first game, and really ever since when they gave up that 4 goals and have that nightmare start of the season, a nightmare start for Chris Armas and his run with the Rapids. Rapids have played much better and started to play up to the potential that we thought that they could be this season. And credit to them, they get a big 3 points and a rare 3 points against RSL in the Rocky Mountain Cup on the road. But for RSL, they desperately need a replacement for Pablo Ruiz because I think this game is kind of started to show like what we saw last season. Once when Pablo Ruiz went down with that season-ending injury, this team just simply collapsed in terms of the creativity department. And I feel like this is going to be the same thing again now that Ruiz is going to be out long term, and that they desperately need a replacement because if they don't, this is going to be how it is, and you would not be surprised if RSL might finish as one of the worst record in the Western Conference because of how flat that they look in this game. But that being said, moving on in terms of the next game, and we're gonna talk about this game first between LAFC versus Sporting KC. So, despite the fact that this was a scoreless draw, I gotta say this was probably the craziest scoreless draw I have seen in a long time. And I have also said this season that I have seen a lot of scoreless draw. That it's not because of lack of trying by both teams. Both teams had chances to finish, but it's just one of those games where neither team were doing well, and a combination of the fact that the goalkeepers were on their games for both teams. Well, not only the fact that this was the case, but this really took it to an overdrive level in terms of it's not because of lack of trying. Because in the first half, just 4 minutes in, Hollinshead would head one right to Melia before Lloris would tip Russell shots over, as both of these teams was getting some good chances early. And then Tommy would puts it wide from long range before Melia absolutely robbed Atuesta as he was clean on goal there. There will be a lot of moments. I'll talk about how both these keepers make some robbery kind of save to deny each of these team of getting the opening goal. Bawanga then blasts one into Rosette in the 17th minute before Russell puts it wide from close. And I also said that I won't be surprised we might see a goal very soon. Spoiler: that turns out to not be the case. But in the 28th minute, Lloris would deny Russell from close range before on the other end, Memo Rodriguez would put it just high from close. And then Russell would fires one wide from long range, and Sporting KC started to take control of this game. Again, for Sporting KC, as much as I know BMO Stadium has always been a house of horror for away team, and it's one of the toughest place to get wins on the road. Sporting KC wouldn't care. Like Sporting KC has been able to get 2 wins on the road against LAFC, which I think that is the most out of any team that is able to beat LAFC at home. So there is no fear factor in terms of this Peter Remis team, and they kind of show they were really taking it against LAFC, creating these tons of chances. But now the question is, can they show their clinical finishing? Well, at least at that point, the answer is no, and we head to halftime scoreless between both of these teams. And in the second half, it would be the post that denied Russell on a curling shot in the 52nd minute, and then on the other end, Oliveira would miss it wide from close. And I mean, how in the world there's not been a goal in this game because chances were coming left and right. Oliveira then missed an absolute sitter on the doorstep of goal. In fact, I wrote a tap in. I mean, that just put it lightly. That was an absolute sitter that Oliveira would want to have back. And then on the other end, or at least on the same end, actually, the post would deny Bawanga as the flag went up. So even if Bawanga scores, that wouldn't have counted. But up to this point, already 2 posts that is being hit. And it's not surprise considering this was a game of missed opportunity for both of these teams. Melia then in the 65th minute received a back pass, and then inadvertently he decided to pick up the ball in his own half, or actually not only in his own half, but in his own box. So yeah, that's a bit of a brain fart moment there from result in an indirect free kick for LAFC, something we usually don't see happen. Now, the good news for Melia is that at least when he picked up this ball inadvertently in his own box, it is only just about close to the 18-yard box. So even though it was an indirect free kick, it was maybe like a 17-yard indirect free kick, but nevertheless, Bouanga crossed it just wide on the indirect free kick, and then in the 70th minute, Shawi would hit one that was denied by Lloris, but he actually got a rebound in terms of it, and he missed that one wide on the rebound as well. But Bawanga on the other end would heads it wide as the flag went up. And again, this game just feels like it's up for grabs. It's all about who can potentially be the one that put away just even one of their chances in this game. Well, Bawanga tried to do so, but Melia was able to deny him from close range. And then on the other end, not to be one up. Lloris would deny Memo Rodriguez from long range in the 82nd minute, and I wrote both goalkeepers deserve a meal paid by their respective team after the game because not only it was a game of missed opportunity, but it was also a game of both goalkeeper was just kind of dueling each other to see which goalkeeper can make the most incredible save to keep this game 0-0 as long as possible. And then in the 84th minute, Martinez was in on goal there, but he completely mishits this one, which kind of just sums up the game uh, for LAFC and really for Sporting KC as well. But then on the third minute stoppage time, literally the last kick of the game, Amelia would absolutely rob Oliveira as the final whistle was blown. And as the final whistle was blown, and they immediately show both head coaches kind of shaking their hands. You can see both head coaches was kind of laughing at each other, and I'm pretty sure they weren't laughing at each other in terms of a good game they saw. They were probably laughing at each other of how in the world did this game end at 0-0, and that kind of what everybody is thinking about because in a game where there was tons of chances, somehow it ends in a scoreless draw. As the shots in this one, 15 shots compared to 14 for both of these teams. So there was 29 shots in this game, and it wasn't like there was a lot of block shots too. Only three apiece for both of these teams. Six shots on goal for both of these teams. Six shots that was off target compared to four that Sporting Casey had, and possession-wise, 58% possession compared to the 42% possession that LAFC has in this game. And despite the fact that there was no goals to be show for, give me this matchup again. Give me this matchup as soon as possible when Sporting KC play against LAFC at Children Mercy Park because this was a very fun game to watch. And this I think is a classic example of sometimes you don't even really need to see a goal to see one of the best MLS game of the season. I mean, again, ideally you would love to see a goal or two, especially for both of these teams to get all 3 points. But the fact that both of these teams were matching each other so closely, can't wait to see when both of these teams meet each other once again, and maybe even meet in the playoffs too. This would be a very fun kind of playoff meeting if both of these teams meet each other in the playoffs later in the season. But that being said, moving on in the next game is the Quakes and Vancouver. So I've said this last week, and I'm gonna reiterate it again. I am very concerned about the San Jose Earthquakes to a point where if I would have just done the emotion index tomorrow, I would immediately put the San Jose Earthquakes in the panic level, even though when I do my first emotion index, I usually don't have the panic level open because you usually don't want to overreact or just go in a panic stage despite the fact that a team have just played 5 or 4 games into the season. But the reason why I kind of have to say it for the Quakes is because when I look at how they play in the first 3 games, this team really reminds me of that 2018 team. And let me just say that 2018 San Jose Earthquakes team was probably one of the toughest season I have ever endured as a Quakes fan, and I'm pretty sure every Quakes fans can relate to me that was probably the toughest season that they ever had to deal with in the history of this franchise. Now, early on, Rodriguez almost scored an own goal just 7 minutes into this game, but that one goes over the bar there. There was no shots for the first 13 minutes as not much really happened. In fact, this was a very boring game. So compare to this game, and I was trying to keep an eye on all three of these games at the same time, but I was actually mostly keeping an eye on these 2 games because this one, man, it was a bit of a snooze fest at time. In the 15th minute, we finally saw the first shot of the game that saw Takaoka denying Espinoza on the free kick. And 32 minutes into this game, the shots were still only 2-0 for the Quakes. Browns did have the first shot for the Whitecaps as he heads it right to Takaoka, but we head to halftime. Unsurprisingly, scoreless in what seems like a snooze fest kind of game. And thank God I didn't actually attend this game. I feel bad for all those fans that attended this one because it was just probably one of the worst first half I've seen so far this season. Now in the second half, Takaoka would deny Pellegrino from close range before Pellegrino had another chance just a couple of seconds later, but he heads it wide in the back post. And I wrote, finally, we are starting to see some sustained pressure for the Quakes that they haven't really done all game long. Spoiler alert, that would kind of be the only time we see some sustained pressure because they were flat throughout this entire game. And it's not this game as well. These last two games, and really this season, the Quakes has been mostly flat on the attack. In the 60th minute, Daniel would deny White from close range as the shots were still only 6-2 for the Quakes 70 minutes into this game. But then on the third shot for the Vancouver Whitecaps, they put it into the back of the net. It's Alessandro Schwab that scores here to make it 1-0 against the Quakes. Last year, Schwab was able to get himself on the score sheet against the Quakes at PayPal Park. So something about him and him loving scoring against the Quakes, especially at PayPal Park. But this one probably shouldn't have been end up into the back of net. And you know that the Quakes are in serious trouble and are not having a great season when even one of their better player in Danielle is having a rough season. I mean, this has been a huge regression at least in these first three games for Daniel. And I know it's early to say, but my God, Daniel this season he looks a complete shell of his former self compared to how last season he was the guy that was single handedly bailing this team out. And then this year, man, he has took a huge regression where he's basically letting goals that. If this was Daniel for last season, that one clearly should not be into the back of net. I mean, that shot from short was hit right to Danielle, and I have no idea how Danielle wasn't able to save that one. But in the 75th minute, Whitewood hits the side netting as he was in on goal. There was then some tempers flare in the 79th minute, and I mean, real that is as much fight that the Quakes have shown throughout the whole game. And I find it funny that the Quakes social media page basically talk about how they're going to show some fight and passion in the last couple of minutes. And I'm not going to blame the social media in turn by saying that and basically false out advertise. I mean, every social media in term around the league is going to hype up the fans in terms of a match day because that's kind of what they're paid for. But yeah, I mean, it was clearly false advertising because besides the fight that the Quakes have shown in that little scrap in the 79th minute, they pretty much show no passion, no fight whatsoever throughout this entire game. And then in the 86th minute, Vancouver would put this one away as Ali Ahmed would score from Veselinovic to make it 2-0 in favor of the Whitecaps. Espinoza would then blast it high on the free kick, and as soon as that shot went wide, the boos came down hard inside PayPal Park of whatever remaining Quakes fans in attendance. I mean, as soon as that second goal was conceded, pretty much the entire stands were empty, and a lot of Quakes fan heads to the exit disappointed. But whoever was still in the stands, you can definitely hear the boos ring around the stadium, and well they deserve too, because this has been an absolute disastrous start for the Quakes. They lose 2-0 in this one. Shots in this one, 9 shots for the 8 that Vancouver has, 4 shots on goal for the 2 that the Quakes had. Both team had 2 shots off target, 2 shots that was blocked for the 3 that the Quakes had, and possession-wise, 60% possession compared to the 40% possession that Vancouver has in this game. And the Quakes remains one of only 3 teams to have yet to register a point, and they're now still the only team in the Western Conference to not register a point. And as I said before, besides maybe NY's CFC and Austin FC, I am very concerned about the Quakes and that I would say that they're probably the worst team right now in the league. Like both on the attack, there's no creativity whatsoever. It's flat throughout the entire game. The midfield looks shambolic at time, and not to mention the defense is the same old from the Quakes for the past couple years, and not to mention Daniel has suffered a bit of a regression as a result of that as well. And that, yeah, I mean, the sad thing about this is I don't know how they're gonna fix this. And I also have heard a lot of people have said that, well, maybe they need to fire Luchi Gonzalez. I don't think firing Luchi Gonzalez is going to fix anything, because I think at the end of the day, we all know who needs to be fired, or at least needs to be stepped down for this team. We know that this is just more than just firing a head coach and things is going to be better. This team is clearly rotten from top to bottom, and I've said it many times for the past couple of years, and unfortunately, it is still the case in the year of 2024. And as for the Vancouver Whitecaps, I mean, I know they didn't play a really good game, and I think Vanni Sartini would probably admit that this is probably one of the ugliest resort that they got, and one of the ugliest win that they got on the road. But when you face against a Quakes team that basically doesn't bother to show up, at least in the first two home game of the season, it really doesn't matter. As long as you are able to get some lucky chances, you're gonna get all 3 points, and that's probably gonna be the story of the season. And that I have a feeling that unless something's changed about this team, and really at the beginning, at least when they finally get a DP number 10 for this Quakes team, this is going to be a long season for the Quakes. This is going to be a reminiscent of the 2018 season, and I also will not be surprised. PayPal Park, it will be empty throughout the game, and that attendance wise might be once again at its worst that we have seen with the Quakes, because of just how bad this team is, both from top bottom. But that being said, I am now going to switch boards and look at the last 3 games and look at the Sunday games to round up match week number 3. All right, so now let's take a look at the Sunday game, and we start off with Cincinnati versus DC United. And just like the LAFC versus Sporting KC game, this game also ended in a 0-0 draw, and that it wasn't because of lack of trying, because both of these team had some real good opportunity in this one as well, though not as much as what we saw in the LAFC versus Sporting KC game. Now, in the first half, Click would hit one right to Salatano before Miazga would hit one right to Bono, as I thought DC had most of the possession early. Hopkins would hit one right to Salatano before Salatano would deny Click from long range, as the shots were 5-1 for DC 28 minutes in. So it's pretty clear who really showed up in this one and who didn't start on time in this game. Though in the 23rd minute, there was a shout for a penalty not given for Cincinnati, and then Click would put one over the bar from long range in the 42nd minute before Bono would deny Powell in the near post, and then he would rob Bear, who had a point blank effort. And Cincinnati, these last 2 games, they must feel like, how in the world have they not scored at least a goal? Because these last 2 games, they have some real glorious opportunity, but yet they just cannot put the ball into the back net. And this time, Corey Bear, again, from 5 yards out, you would expect him to put the ball to the back of the net. And while it was a great save from Alex Bono, that's one that Corey Bear is going to be thinking about for a long time, and one that FC Cincinnati's got to get their acts together in terms of their finishing, especially they could be facing elimination if they don't win that second leg affair against Riot Bills down in Mexico. But there was no doubt that Cincinnati finally woke up after a slow start as they were pushing for the opening goal. Bono would then deny Moranos from close range, and then he denied Santos as the flag went up in the 5th minute stoppage time. And I also wrote that as dominant that DC has been throughout the first 45 minutes, they were on their heels and they desperately need that halftime whistle. Fortunately, the halftime whistle did sound and we head to halftime scoreless between both of these teams. Now, in the 47th minute, Dahome would puts it over the bar from close range before Herrera puts it wide from long range in the 50th minute. And once again, promising start for DC. They were pushing to try to get the opening goal. Lucho Acosta then gets booked for simulation after he appealed for a penalty. So yeah, something tells me Lucho Acosta might have a mail from the disciplinary committee about simulation and may get a fine because of that. But in the 65th minute, Herrera had a one-hopper that goes right to Salatano before on the other end, Bono would deny Acosta after just a bad turnover from DC. DC didn't turn the ball over a lot in this game, which is kind of the reason why they didn't really give Cincinnati a lot of chance at times of this game. But that was one of those ones where they probably got very fortunate that they weren't being punished because of turning the ball over in a bad spot in their own half. Buka then hits one right to Bono in the 81st minute, and Cincinnati once again was pushing for the opening goal. But the question is, can they beat Bono? Because Alex Bono, he's been playing very well, at least in these first couple of games. Almost started to look like he's in the same form that he was with TFC a couple of years ago, where when TFC was at their heights, Alex Bono was definitely along with them too, being one of the better goalkeeper in MLS. And in the 83rd minute, he would absolutely rob Bupenza, despite the fact that he was being off balance there. So Bupenza is another player that must be scratching their heads. How in the world did they not put the ball in the back of net? Not just in this game, but even going back to the Rayados game in the first leg of the round of 16 CONCACAF Champions Cup. Morel then flashed one wide from close in the 87th minute. What a moment that would have been for Jacob Morel if he would have scored on his debut and pick a perfect time to do so in the 87th minute. Before on the other end, speaking of homegrown or at least players from plays for their MLS Next Pro team, Valenzuela would puts it wide from long range in the 89th minute, and in the end, both of these teams just could not show their clinical finishing. It ends in a 0-0 draw. And the shots in this one, 14 shots compared to 13 that DC had, 4 shots on goal for the 7 that Cincinnati has, 3 shots off target for the 4 that DC had, 5 shots that was blocked for the 3 that Cincinnati has, and possession-wise, 56% possession compared to 44% possession that DC has in this game. And for DC, I think they'll be happy with this point. I mean, ideally, I think you would say that they probably were hoping for all 3 points, considering they created some really good opportunity in this game. But they'll take it. With the way that despite the fact that they haven't had Benteke in the last couple of games, they're still picking a point despite that. But for FC Cincinnati, very frustrating home game, and it's been a frustrating week for Cincinnati in 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 general as well. It just feels like this is like the problem that they had last season as well, where their attack just doesn't seem like it was clicking. And really, the only difference is, at least last season, they were able to grind out a couple of 1-0 victory to get them 3 points. But even with their attack struggling like they did last year, unfortunately this year they just could not even find themselves a goal and grind out those 1-0 resort, and that's something that Pat Nolan is going to be a little concerned and hope to turn around, especially as soon as Wednesday when they have almost an impossible task trying to overcome a 1-0 deficit on the road down in Mexico against Rayados in Monterrey. But moving on in terms of the next match, and I'm going to actually go to this one first, which is Nashville versus the LA Galaxy. And I gotta say, coming into this game, I thought Nashville was going to be absolutely shellacked by the Galaxy in this one because, coming into this game, it was pretty clear that Gary Smith want to punt this game away because he want to solely focus on that Inter Miami game in the middle of the week. But despite the fact that they were shorthanded, they were definitely keeping up with the Galaxy in this game. In the first half, Puig would hits one right to Panico in the 6th minute. And as I said, unsurprisingly, the Galaxy was on the front foot. They were looking to try to get the opening goal, while a shorthanded Nashville team was just kind of sitting back and hope to counter, and maybe even trying to play for a 0-0 draw, because that's kind of what Gary Smith tends to sometimes do when he has to be forced to play a shorthanded Nashville team. In the 17th minute, though, a penalty though was given to the Galaxy as VAR deemed that Mayer brought down Joveljic in the box, but unfortunately, Joveljic wasn't able to put this one away. In fact, it was actually a kick save there from Panico on the penalty spot. That's something you usually don't see goalkeeper do when they save a penalty, but Elliot Panico was able to make that save, and that just also kind of proved to you why he's such a good penalty kick stopper. I mean, he kind of showed that last year in the Leeds Cup, and it's basically continued into this season as well. Though in the 21st minute, Ricky Puig thought that he got the opening goal for the Galaxy as well, but the problem was he was in an offside position, so the goal didn't count it. McCarthy then denied Sadish, as that was really Nashville's first shot and first real opportunity on the attack. Gaines would then puts it over from long range in the 25th minute, and it almost looked like that first shot that Nashville has kind of woke them up and kind of had that belief that maybe we can go a little bit more on the attack and maybe take some more risks and not just grind out a 0-0 resort. But in the 4th minute of stoppage time, Yearwood would hits it high from long range, and we do head to halftime scoreless between both of these teams, which is kind of what Nashville would really want coming out of this one, despite being shorthanded. In the 46th minute, Panico would deny Yearwood in the near post. Or actually, I'm sorry, it's McCarthy, the one that denied Yearwood in the near post. Obviously, his own goalkeeper is not going to deny his own player unless if it's an own goal attempt. Joveljic would then head it wide from close, and then the post would deny Pencil and the Galaxy the opening goal. And once again, the Galaxy were knocking on the front or knocking on the door, and they were on the front foot trying to get the opening goal. But instead, penalty was given to Nashville after Pencil brought down Yearwood in the box, and this was just a sloppy foul there from Josef Pencil. And unsurprisingly, for a guy that is not known for defending, this was kind of a clumsy challenge, which give Nashville the chance to convert in the penalty. And after Nashville saw that the Galaxy missed from the spot, they looked to try to not do that, and especially the same case for Teal Bunbury. And the good news for them, they were able to convert their penalty as Teal Bunbury buries it to give Nashville a 1-0 lead. And then just 4 minutes later, Yearwood would score from Mackenzie Gaines to make it 2-0 in favor of Nashville. And really, in a half that I thought the Galaxy dominate, they must be scratching their heads. How in the world they've all of a sudden found themselves 2-0 down? I mean, they got sucker punched in a span of just 4 minutes. But credit to the Galaxy, they did show some resilience. As in the 67th minute, they finally got that goal that they deserve in this game. As Ricky Pooch would finally score here from Delgado to make it 2-1 in this one. Yamani did try to tie it for the Galaxy, but he puts it over from long range. And then on the other end, Mukhtar looked like he made it 3-1 in this game, but the goal was disallowed for offside as well. Nashville kind of started to put some of their cavalry, thinking that, well, maybe if we can bring some of our star player, we can hold on to this 2-1 lead. But obviously, as we find out, that didn't turn out to be the case. And by the way, the ref was told that he sucked after that offside call that popped off of what would have been the third goal for Nashville. Not a big surprise because the ref you suck can is pretty much like a tradition like no other at Geodis Park. But in the 81st minute, Yearwood would pulls it wide from long range, and then in the 82nd minute, Joveljic would tie the game up. He scored here from Aldi to tie the game up at 2 apiece, and that was not great defending there from Nashville. That's going to be one that's going to drive Darren Smith mad because of how Joveljic just found himself wide open in the 18-yard box. That's very like Nashville, and actually not the 18-yard box. I would just say maybe the 6-yard box. I mean, that's very unlike Nashville for a team that always pride themselves to be a very compact defensive kind of team. So on the other end, Moore did try to respond, but he puts this one high, and then McKee would tip Mukhtar shots over in the first minute of stoppage time. I thought the game really started to be wide open. And like both of these teams was chasing for the winning goal. Pooch tried to do so in the ninth minute of stoppage time, but he hits one right to panic. So, and in the end, it ends honors even as it ends in a 2-2 draw in this one. Shots in this one, 20 shots compared to 13 that Nashville has. 8 shots on goal for the 4 that Nashville has. 5 shots off target for the 4 that the Galaxy had. 4 shots that was blocked for the 7 that the Galaxy had. And possession-wise, 45% possession compared to 55% possession that the Galaxy has in this game. And, even though they did drop points and did blow a 2-0 lead, I think Nashville will probably be the more happier side considering, they were a little shorthanded coming into this game and against a red hot Galaxy team and not expect to get anything out of this game. I think they'll be happy with points. But for the Galaxy, I mean, I guess maybe it could be the same thing where they'll be happy to get a point out of this one considering they found themselves 2-0 down and they could have easily just folded and basically they took that sucker punch that turns out to be a knockout blow. But they showed some resilience in this game and fought themselves back into this game to salvage a draw on the road. I mean, anytime when you're able to come back from 2-0 down on the road and salvage draw, it's always considered a positive result, no matter what kind of circumstances it is. But that being said, moving on in the last game on this board, really the last game of match week number 3 is Miami and Montreal. So this is the first game where Inter Miami had to be pretty much forced to go with a rotational squad because you're not going to play Messi and friends every single week. And I know they tried to do so, but unfortunately Messi picked up a knock, and there's no doubt that Tata Martino is not gonna risk him to put him in this game. I mean, after what he probably learned from his mistake from last year, decided to put Messi in the game despite he's not 100% healthy, and it cost Miami dearly. But in a game where this is the first time where Miami had to go with a rotational squad, and there was a question: can they pass the test if they go with a rotational squad? Well, unfortunately, they failed that test. though they kind of failed the test against a Montreal team that, again, Laurent Courtois, something tells me that he is bringing this Montreal team back to where they were a couple of years ago under Wilfred Nancy and being a team that is just so hard to, to beat when you're basically playing them at home. Early on, Alvarez would miss wide despite being wide open in the box as Montreal is on the front foot, causing all sorts of problems for Miami. And this is not a big surprise because throughout these first three road games that Montreal has had, they've always been on the front foot, and this is not a big surprise because the tactics and the philosophy that Laurent Courtois used very similar to Wilfred Nancy. It's a team that's not afraid to be on the front foot, not afraid to just put men forward and cause their host all sorts of trouble early in the game. Kokoro with had an empty net to shoot in the 12th minute after counter came off his lines and misjudged it, and actually he was trying to head that one away but just completely missed it. But unfortunately for Kokoro, he just waited too long. I mean, he was deciding to try to shoot that, maybe being a little bit too cute, trying to dance around Christoph there, but Christoph didn't bite. Yeah, and he stood on his ground and able to block that one. And honestly, I don't know what is a more embarrassing moment in that. Is it Calendar to come off his lines and misjudging that one and completely missed the header, or the fact that Kokoro wasn't able to put this one into the back net? I mean, he's been kind of snake bitten early this season, Kokoro from Montreal. But the good news is his teammate picked up the slack because on the ensuing corner, Fernando Alvarez would score for the first time for Montreal as he scored from Lassiter to make it 1-0 in favor of Montreal. And guess what? Miami Achilles heel strikes again. Again, this team has always had problem in terms of defending set piece. They can see the most goal last season on the set piece, and especially from the corner. And it feels like they're on record to try to do so again this season. But in the 21st minute, it looked like Jordi Alba had an instant response by putting the ball into the back of net. The problem was the goal was chopped off because of offside, and then Sunderland would puts it wide from long range in the 29th minute. But on the other end, Calendar would deny Kokoro, but he actually went down in the box and no penalty was given. And I gotta say, I mean, I feel like this probably should have been a penalty because I feel like Kokoro definitely was pushed down in the box. But this is Miami, and Miami does get some special treatment at times. So I also wasn't kind of surprised the fact that wasn't called as a penalty. But that being said, in the 40th minute, Taylor would struck the post from close range. There was no doubt that Miami was starting to push for the equalizer, and then he had another chance in the 42nd minute, but he hits it right to see was, and we do head to halftime with Montreal leading 1-0 in this game. Okay. But we go to the second half, and in the second half, Redondon puts it wide from long range before Campana looked like he put the ball into the back net. But for the second time in this game, the goal was disallowed for offside. But there was no doubt that momentum was with Miami, and Montreal started to kind of sit back and kind of bunker in. And this is where if there's one criticism I would say about Laurent Courtois early in his season or early in his reign with Montreal is that he hasn't been able to keep up the same kind of intensity that Wilfred Nancy likes to do throughout the whole 90 minutes, and sometimes he just kind of go way too defensive, especially in the second half. We kind of saw it in the game against Orlando. We saw it in the last game as well, but they got away with getting a win, and it feels like they're going to try to do it again. And I've mentioned before how many times when you try to do that, if you're the road team, it's usually not going to work, and especially in a week where there's been tons of stoppage time winner, I feel like that was not going to work, especially when Miami started to summon some of their starters as they started bringing Busquets and Gomez in this game later on. They also brought Suarez in this game as well. Then there was a huge shout for a penalty, this time for Miami that was not given. And while there was an appeal for that penalty, there was also some coming together as there started to be some bad blood that is being shared by both of these teams. But in the 70th minute, Miami finally equalized. It's Campana scoring from Sunderland here to tie the game up at one apiece. And that was kind of coming because you knew that with the way that Montreal was being compacted and was just clearly parking the bus and play for a 1-0 win. That usually doesn't doesn't go so well for the road team. And also, I even wrote for a team that stayed compacted. That was just not great defending there from Montreal. First of all, the cross from Sunderland, Siwa's got to get to it. I mean, Siwa's, I don't know why he didn't jump up and get to it. It looked like he could have got to it because that cross that was against the box was pretty close in the goalkeeper side where the goalkeeper usually could just get there to jump up to get it. But also, Campana left completely unmarked in the back post. Yeah, that was not great defending whatsoever for mine or for Montreal. That is. So yeah, the game was tied up at one apiece, and you're thinking, well, momentum should be with Miami, right? However, in the 75th minute, Okoro, who has been just so snake bitten in the beginning of the season, he finally got a goal in this game from Shrinier to make it 2-1 in favor of Montreal. And once again, guess what is the problem for Miami in this game? If you get set pieces, then you basically get another goal conceded in this game because yeah, again, just these set pieces defending for Miami, it's just killing this team, and this is going to be a downfall of this team unless they can continue to practice on it because it's quite crazy the fact that for a team that I've already mentioned the defense is not very good, but the fact that they continue to have problem in terms of set pieces, that's going to be something that they have to address as the season goes on. They want to continue to be a team that could contend for MLS Cup and even in the CONCACAF Champions Cup as well. Because the book is definitely out there for Miami. As long as you can get those set piece opportunity, you're gonna have a good opportunity to score against this Miami team that just really struggle in terms of scoring on the set piece, but or not scoring on the set piece, but defending set piece in general. But in the 78th minute, Sanusi Ibrahim would score from Martinez to make it 3-1 in favor of Montreal. But before I even get a chance to see how Montreal look like, they finally realized that yeah, bunkering 1-0 on the road is not a great idea. In the 80th minute, Jordi Alba would answer from Busquets to make it 3-2 in this game. And I mean, what is defending? Because there was no defending that was found in the last 10 minutes of this game. It was just back and forth in terms of the goal scoring. It was, I mean, I know it wasn't dark yet, but it felt like MLS after dark with how things were going. In the 85th minute, Suarez would have a shot that was deflected and it hits the post, and then Borglund blasted high from close in the 90th minute. We then get 9 minutes of stoppage time, and I feel like we've seen this story before, and you just kind of had a sense that it was a matter of time before Miami maybe get themselves another late miraculous equalizer. In fact, we also saw the flag for the linesman is broken, which I thought that was just a peak MLS kind of moment. That only in MLS that could happen in the middle of the game. But unfortunately for Miami, the luck kind of ran out for this team, and I so just realized my laptop is about to run out of battery, so I better plug my laptop. It doesn't just close on me as I'm recording this video. There we go. Okay, so yeah, I plugged in. Just I don't want to just have this video inexplicably come to an end because my laptop was dying in terms of battery. But yeah, as I said before, despite the fact that Miami has had some miracles and some stoppage time heroic, well, eventually that's going to have to come to an end, and it came to an end in this one as Montreal hold on to get a big 3-2 win over Miami. The shots in this one, 15 shots for the 12 that Montreal has. Both team had 4 shots on goal. Both team had 3 shots off target. 4 shots that was blocked for the 6 that Miami has. And possession-wise, 57% possession compared to the 43% possession that Montreal has in this game. And that's already 2 road wins that Montreal has had. And you know how I said how Montreal, as long as they can get through the first 6 games and be around the red line, they could be in good shape of making the playoffs. Forget all that. I feel like this team, with the way that how they have performed, at least in these last couple of games under Laurent Courtois, this team can look very similar to what we saw how Wilfred Nancy was able to get this team to second in the Eastern Conference. Now, I don't know if that's going to be the case again because the Eastern Conference is much more competitive compared to when Wilfred Nancy got that team to second place, but Laurent Courtois has definitely done a good job for this team. I think the only thing I will say that maybe he needs to work on is to not just play bunker ball in the latter part of the second half as we see. seen a lot from this Montreal team. But for Miami, as I said, their first big test in terms of playing a rotated squad, and it did not quite work so well. And again, those set piece defending, I think that's going to be one thing that is still going to be a huge concern of this team, because it doesn't really matter if they put there's all their starter in or put in a reserve squad. If they cannot defend set pieces, that's going to be something that teams are going to exploit, and that is going to be something that could be a downfall if Miami want to not only win trophies but maybe even go deep in the playoffs, or even go deep in the CONCACAF Champions Cup. You cannot be a team that can be that bad in terms of defending set pieces and still consider yourself to be an MLS Cup contender, or even a team that could go deep in multiple competition. But there you have it. That is pretty much it in terms of looking at the last 6 games from match week number 3, and looking at all the games from match week number 3. As always, let me know in the comments below, what do you think of this video. And yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys like, smash the subscribe button. And yeah, I of course will see you guys next time.